So I'm in a movie theater, the seat is shaking, the sound is hammering my eardrums. Up on the screen, a superhero is fighting some giant monster, turning downtown Manhattan into a cloud of digital dust. And I'm looking at my watch. I'm not excited. I'm not scared. I'm just waiting for it to be over. And when the screen finally cuts to black and that over-the-top music starts playing with the credits, I realize I don't even know the main character's name. Sound familiar? You know, initially, I just wanted to talk about the new tech in Avatar and James Cameron's genius. But the deeper I dug, the more this story felt like it was an explanation for why I feel so empty watching giant robots punch space lizards. This is the moment cinema took a wrong turn. Avatar is the signpost, and Hollywood followed it right off a cliff.
The 3D epic Avatar
continues to dominate at the box office.
Everyone who's seen Avatar says you have to go see it.
Avatar is apparently not awful.
It's going to change the way movies are made forever.
The new way Hollywood will be making movies.
I think that'll pay big dividends in the future for Hollywood.
James Cameron is just such a mastermind. Now everyone across the country will be able to have 3D at their local theater.
or see their theater go dark forever.
Are you excessively obsessive?
Clinically? Never been diagnosed.
The story starts with James Cameron's obsession with solving engineering problems. In 1995, he directed T2 3D for the Universal Studios theme parks.
The only place on Earth where you can ride the movies.
He loved the idea of 3D, but he despised the actual process of filming it.
The logistics and the technology required were enormous. The cameras were the size of refrigerators.
So he asked Vince Pace, an engineer who'd built underwater cameras for The Abyss, to help him build a better camera. Their first rig was a 450-pound monster made by sticking two huge 65mm cameras together with extra mechanics. To calibrate it, they had to adjust the lenses, distance, and tweak the focus so both cameras worked in sync. It took hours, and getting 3 or 4 good shots in a day felt like a big win. But that monstrous camera proved the concept worked. So Cameron spent the next decade on a personal quest to turn that machine into a usable tool. He used a clever mirror system to get the two lenses as close together as human eyes. Then he replaced film cameras with digital ones.
That's one camera body. And this over here is a separate camera body, each with its own lens.
By ditching heavy film and the motors needed to run it, the rig finally became light enough to actually use on a set. And then he field tested the whole system miles beneath the ocean, filming his documentaries.
You want to see Titanic? Check this out, bro. You're going to love this. It's like, there she is, baby.
So you might be wondering why I gave you that whole backstory. It's because it's the only way to explain why Cameron really decided to shoot Avatar in 3D.
Who gives a shit? I mean, what a colossal waste of everyone's time.
If I were to give you the official answer, I'd say it was because of his deep love for the technology, a passion project he poured a decade of his life and $12 million into. But the version without the sugarcoating sounds more like this. He'd poured a decade of his life and $12 million into it. He had built the perfect product, but he had no customers. Avatar was the Super Bowl ad for his camera system. So first he had to convince theaters to show his ad in 3D.
The first time that we actually showed it to a large group of people was Cinema Expo, which is an exhibitors convention in Amsterdam.
In a room full of theater owners and studio executives, he made his pitch.
So I've sort of set as my goal, making movie theater back to the kind of sacred experience that it's always been for me my whole life.
Back in 2009, Hollywood had two problems. The first was pirates, who were raiding movie theaters with camcorders. Remember that cam rip? That shaky, muffled crap was costing them millions. Their second problem was the 2008 financial crash. Suddenly, families had better things to spend their money on than movies.
And what do they cut back on? Baked goods, movies, restaurants, and as a result, the entire economy suffers.
He promised them a weapon that could win the war on two fronts. First, an experience so spectacular it would get audiences off their couches and justify a higher ticket price. And second, a strike against piracy on a scale that would make Cutler Beckett proud.
Cutler Beckett is Lord now, actually.
After all, trying to film a 3D movie with a hidden camcorder is, to put it mildly, a dumb idea.
The enemy has opted for oblivion.
But while it's easy to convince rich people they should make more money, it's much harder to convince the internet of anything.
Yeah, well, that's just like your opinion, man.
When the first trailer dropped, it bombed. And yes, I've been around long enough to remember Landline TV's CGI junkie sketch.
Wow, it looks great.
And it could look even better. For an extra $45 million,
No.
What do you mean, no? I tell you to give me money and you give it to me. That's how this works.
As well as that South Park episode.
Smurfs and I grew to understand each other. They shared with me their art of picking Smurf berries. Of course, it wasn't long before I fell in love with Smurfette. We're from two different worlds, and yet we spoke the common language of passion. But then, a crisis. Clumsy Smurf burst into the Smurf ceremony to say that humans had come to destroy all of Smurfland. No! Of course, since I'm being silenced, I'm not allowed time to show you the entire movie. And so please buy Dances with Smurfs, available now on DVD.
The marketing team's response was a massive gamble called Avatar Day. They organized a free worldwide 16-minute sneak peek, letting the film itself do the talking. The gamble paid off. Avatar grossed $1 billion in just 19 days.
And the film has broken every box office record there is.
To this day, it's the highest grossing film of all time. And 72% of that money came from premium priced 3D tickets.
Now, every indication is that this trend will continue as audiences appear to be more than willing to shell out a few extra dollars for this total immersion experience that can't be replicated anywhere else.
Early adopters proved that Cameron's formula could sell a movie. Resident Evil Afterlife and Tron Legacy used his fusion rig to deliver exactly what the market wanted. Axes slicing the screen and neon light cycle chases that packed IMAX theaters. Even serious directors began to flirt with the new tool. Martin Scorsese's Hugo won an Oscar for cinematography, and Wim Wenders' Pina became the first 3D film nominated for Best Documentary. The trend reached its peak in 2013 with Gravity. 80% of its opening week gross came from 3D tickets. While filmmakers explored, the engineer cashed in. Cameron's own company, the Cameron Pace Group, was paid by the studio to develop the cameras for Avatar. In the years after the film's release, they earned an estimated $250 million from camera sales, rentals, and patents.
Are all movies going to become 3D in the future?
Yes. Well, not all movies. Not all movies are in color. There's still one or two a year that squeak through that.
Sure, 3D took over the market and the studios saw their profits soar, but there were casualties. As I've mentioned, the key innovation was the switch to digital. And no, I'm not about to wax poetic about the artistic value or the magic of film. This came down to money.
A big change is headed our way in the way we watch movies.
Hollywood is moving to all digital formats. It means
This push to go digital could leave many theaters in the dust.
Now, had it been just a few months ago, we'd have watched this movie on this 35mm film. But many of the major film companies are now switching over to these digital projectors.
A digital copy cost around $100 compared to up to $2,000 for a 35mm film print. To upgrade a single screen, however, cost an average of $70,000. So small family-owned theaters were hesitant to take on that kind of debt. But the market pushed, and the big chains upgraded fast. In just 6 years, the US and Canada went from 3,500 3D-ready screens to over 16,000.
The film companies have basically stated, as of 2014, we're not shipping film anymore. It's not going to happen.
This gave theater owners a brutal convert or go dark ultimatum.
Well, one by one, they're disappearing. And with them, something you might have taken for granted for a long time.
Within a year, about a third of all rural theaters and drive-ins had closed or been sold to the larger chains. And the irony? After forcing thousands of theaters into debt, the 3D boom collapsed. The weapon against piracy had a fatal flaw. You could still buy a ticket for the regular screening.
What a twist!
And people got sick of paying extra for murky movies that made their heads hurt and were often lazily converted to 3D in post-production. The experience you can't get at home was an experience nobody wanted.
What'd you think of the 3D?
I think it could have did without the 3D because it was dark in a lot of places, so you had to take the glasses on and off to kind of see some things that was actually happening. So
by 2017, even the CEO of IMAX announced that they would be cutting 3D screenings to prioritize regular films.
What did we learn, Palmer?
I don't know, sir.
I don't fucking know either. I guess we learned not to do it again.
This seems like a good place to end the story, but the truth is, 3D is only a fraction of it. The real changes Cameron made were to the very idea of how a blockbuster is built. I'm watching Alien. The film is almost 50 years old, but that chest burster scene still sends shivers down my spine. Ridley Scott doesn't boast about the shot. Quick cuts hide its flaws. I know it's a puppet under the table, but it works. So why can CGI do anything, but I feel nothing? I don't care when a hero's back bulldozes a wall. I don't get a rush from an airborne car chase. I can't relate. Take Alien again. Ridley didn't warn the actors, so their shock is real, which makes my shock real. Spielberg, with a broken shark, made a horror movie that emptied the beaches. The shark barely appears, so he had to find other ways to terrify us. And ironically, the man who best understood the power of these limitations was James Cameron.
Cut. Try it again.
Practical effects are a battle against chaos, a fight against time, budget, against materials that break, against the one perfect take you can never repeat. And Cameron was the king of that chaos.
I mean, he wants to do basically everything because he has such a clear vision. And see him ending up running with the smoke machine and putting on blood and trying to do your makeup. That's why people always say that a Jim Cameron movie has a certain look.
He built a 600-pound animatronic alien queen and made you believe in it. He shot the abyss literally underwater. And I still rewatch Terminator 2 because Stan Winston hid the CGI behind dozens of puppets and animatronics. But there was one mistake Cameron couldn't fix. It happened on the Titanic's deck, and it reveals everything about the future he was about to build.
Terminator 2 Judgment Day has just become the biggest money spinner of all time.
30 years ago, after T2, Cameron saw the future, and he was frustrated. The liquid metal T1000 was a work of art, but each shot was built by hand, like a custom car. ILM artists spent 10 months on just 42 shots, and it cost about $5 million. It looked great, but it wasn't an assembly line. And Cameron doesn't build custom cars, he builds factories.
That's the worst metaphor ever.
But how do you build one when you don't have the tools? Inventions don't just pop up. They need real projects to test and improve them. That's exactly how Photoshop was born, as a tool to work with digital backgrounds in the abyss water tentacle scene.
It's wonderful.
So in 1995, Cameron wrote the most visually demanding script ever. He called it Avatar. It's set on a far-off moon filled with tall blue people. Normally, to make a world like that, you'd use animation, but Cameron didn't want cartoons. He wanted his digital characters to move just like real actors. To do that, he needed motion capture. Here's how it works. An actor wears a suit covered in little dots. When the actor moves, a computer tracks those dots and makes a simple stick figure skeleton. Then you slip a digital skin over that skeleton and boom! You get a CGI character that moves exactly like the actor. So Cameron's big idea was to fill a whole movie with those stick figure skeletons under photorealistic CGI skin.
I figured if we could do that, we could do anything. And of course, the answer that I got was, we can't do this. Nobody can do this.
So Cameron put the plan on hold and made Titanic instead, where the primitive motion capture used for digital extras was a constant reminder of how far the technology still had to go.
But I knew CG wasn't going to stop advancing. All the other companies were going to continue to push, and all the other directors were going to continue to push those companies. So I knew it was only a matter of time.
Eventually, someone else would invent the secret ingredient he was missing. So Cameron did the smartest thing he could. He waited.
Everybody was going off in these different directions, creating these different variants on the theme of these performance capture technologies.
And action!
First, George Lucas gave it a shot in The Phantom Menace. He put Ahmed Best in a mocap suit on set to create Jar Jar Binks.
The difficult thing is creating a performance from a wireframe model on a computer. A performance that is as rich and as human and as dignified as any other character that we have in the movie.
Don't do that again.
But the technology was too rough. Animators still had to keyframe almost every move by hand. So Jar Jar ended up looking like, well, you've seen it. It's self-explanatory, even to Yusa Misa Wisa. The problem looked unsolvable until 2002. For the first time, a digital character really felt alive. It seemed performance capture had arrived, but it was still a trick.
Not listening. Not listening.
While Andy Serkis's body drove Gollum's movements, his face was just a reference. Animators recreated his expressions by hand.
And so you had the most important part of his performance, which was sort of what you see in here, was really entirely up to the animation team.
When I saw what Peter Jackson did with the Lord of the Rings films with Gollum, I said, okay, you can do a character. Now let's see what it's going to take to do multiple characters and to generate a big pipeline that's going to be able to do literally thousands of shots.
Like T2, it was a custom car, but Cameron needed more. More arrived 2 years later. Hidden in an express that took a detour from the uncanny valley straight to the uncanny capital. And if you're that one guy that doesn't know what the uncanny valley is, it's that skin-crawling feeling you get when something looks almost real, but isn't. Yeah, Polar Express is the only kids' movie where the kids look like they're wearing other kids' faces. But inside those creepy children was Tom Hanks. Damn, that did sound better in my head.
If I were you, I would think about climbing on board.
Long story short, Zemeckis used the best motion capture technology in the world for his Christmas Story. They mapped every muscle Hanks owns, then pasted that data on digital 6-year-olds. That still sounds creepy. The result was awful, but Cameron saw past it and found his secret ingredient. It was a small team of engineers. They were in business from 1999. They built a rig for Gollum and they perfected it for the Polar Express. And jokes aside, it was an engineering marvel. Zemeckis recorded his actors in a bare room, and then, long after they'd gone, he filmed them with a virtual camera.
I could have a human camera operator actually operate the virtual camera, so it had a much more realistic and traditional movie cinema feeling.
It was the exact process Cameron wanted for Avatar, with a few tweaks.
Which is what exactly?
First, Cameron went to Fox and asked for
$10 million to prove we can make this movie. And they said, basically, are you nuts? I said, look, it's either that or you're going to greenlight a $200 million movie and not know whether we can do it or not. So what would you prefer? They said, here's $10 million.
Then he hired Giant Studios to start building his factory. And to jump ahead for a sec, once Avatar proved the system worked, Cameron bought Giant Studios. The patents, the software, the engineers, he absorbed it all. And if you want a lame analogy, Cameron was Gollum. And he had finally gotten his precious. So now that he had his team, let's take a look at what he actually built.
Hell, it's about time.
This is the volume. Here's where all the wizardry happens. Over 100 infrared cameras hanging all around the soundstage. They're tracking the reflective dots on each suit down to the millimeter, no matter how many actors or horses are in a scene. Yeah, there were horses.
Is that BoJack Horseman?
Oh, geez, here we go. Over here, you've got a row of computers. Let's call it the nerd corner. This is where all the data from the sensors is transformed into a low-resolution, real-time render of the CGI world. Think of it as a video game. Cameron played it through the virtual camera, which was basically a TV screen with handles. He could walk through the empty room, but on his screen, he was walking inside the jungles of Pandora, aiming his camera at digital characters. But there are also a dozen real cameras filming every possible angle. This footage is edited on the same day to create a rough cut of the scene, which becomes a guide for the animators later. And yes, all this tech still couldn't replace animators entirely, because at the end of the day, no actor on Earth knows how to flick their tail. But the digital world was built on a physical foundation. The volume was a high-tech jungle gym of skeletal frames, rigs, and structures. To capture the strain of climbing a floating mountain, the crew built specific handholds and ledges for the performers to touch. Smaller setups were used to imitate the terrain, and the complex rigs were used to create a convincing flying experience. All of this forced the actors' bodies to move with true weight and effort. But who were the actors? I'm not talking about the stars. Sure, we all know the stories. Matt Damon effed up.
Jim Cameron called me. He offered me 10% of Avatar.
Sam Worthington slept in his car before his audition.
You found him in a car, right?
He was living in a car when I cast him.
Lang being pulled from Cameron's memory from an old Aliens audition.
Back in 1985 as a young actor. And I remembered him from then.
My name is Stephen Lang. And I'm in the movie.
And Zoe Saldana became the sci-fi queen of a generation in just a few years.
I know who you are. Anyone knows who you are.
Yeah, who's this Zoe chick? I mean, never heard of her really.
Ow! I'm sensitive! Jesus!
No, the actors who were truly interesting are the ones you've never seen. Like this fella right here.
I am part of the troupe. We fill in the many different crazy things that these projects call for.
Meet the troupe. Cameron's own personal army of dancers, stunt performers, and acrobats. Their work began long before the main cast ever put on a mocap suit. They were the factory's research and development division, building a test run of the entire movie with Cameron, refining every action and blocking every scene. The troupe also played nearly every small role in the film. The same guy could be repurposed as dozens of different background characters and extras. And if Cameron needed a large crowd, he could film the same 20 troupe members from different angles, then use a kind of copy-paste button to turn them into an army of hundreds.
I would say there probably isn't a single scene in the movie that I have not done something in, whether it's doubling or playing a character or doing something at some point.
But the troupe's biggest impact on the industry was something you never saw. Remember the action-packed Arnie sequences in T2? If you pay attention, you can spot this guy in most of the scenes. Hiding the double forced editors to use tricks, faster cuts, quick close-ups, and wide shots from the back. But performance capture let Cameron digitally stitch a stuntman's body to an actor's face, creating a seamless shot. Of course, they don't like to talk about this in the behind-the-scenes videos. It ruins the whole mantra about preserving the actor's pure performance.
Every nuance, every tiny bit of the performance that you see on the screen was created by the actors.
Right.
Speaking of faces, how did they solve the dead eyes problem? Previously, mocap used markers on an actor's face, but that doesn't capture much detail.
You can't glue markers onto somebody's eyeballs So how are you going to know how their eyes are moving around? Now you're making that up. So we came up with this idea that we would actually have a little boom, and on the end of that boom there'd be a little tiny camera, and it would image the face while the actor was working. So it captured every nuance of how their lips moved and how all their facial muscles moved, how their eyes moved.
So Cameron had his tools. He built his factory, and yes, I know what you're probably thinking. What does any of this have to do with that mistake on the Titanic deck? Patience. We're getting there.
Don't worry about it. I couldn't care less.
The cost of this thing was enormous. For Avatar's budget, you could have shot 2 Titanics colliding. So with that much money on the line, what kind of world do you build? You build the one that sells.
That's the only reason. It's what pays for the whole party.
And if you ask me, how alien did they get? My answer is, not very. Now, don't get me wrong, Pandora is amazing. It's the ultimate vacation spot, the floating mountains, straight from the national park in China. The glowing forest inspired by caves in New Zealand. The jungles are from Hawaii and the Amazon. You see where this is going, right? A familiar landscape is an emotional shortcut. It gives you awe without the hard work of understanding something new. A truly alien world was a risk they weren't willing to take. He's selling you a ticket to a vacation you can't afford. It's a trick so overused in modern movies it's almost funny.
They like to get the landmarks.
Every Mission Impossible plot is just an excuse to wreck the most popular tourist spots on Earth. And the poor streets of Italy, how many times can they get demolished in the name of good versus evil? But it didn't stop with the landscape. The creatures followed the same formula. A horse with 6 legs, a panther with 6 legs, a whale with, well, it's just a whale, I suppose.
Oh, come on, that's not a...
And finally, the Na'vi themselves. Cameron knew the film's success depended on its love story, and a love story only works if the audience finds the characters attractive. So the Na'vi couldn't look too strange.
We initially started out with kind of more amphibian-like and reptilian kind of forms, antennae and things like that. And we kept realizing that it wouldn't work as a love story to see them not be attractive. And then they kept coming back to just blue-skinned humans.
No, I'm afraid I just blew myself.
So we have to find ways of pushing away from human, but in a way that people would not find off-putting, and in fact might even find to be kind of quite beautiful. I wanted people to say, I want to be one of them.
I am a living god.
And it worked. The world he built was so seductive that when the movie came out, thousands of fans genuinely mourned that Pandora wasn't real.
There's controversy that's surrounding the movie. They're calling it Avatar Blues.
Yes, diehard fans of Avatar are depressed.
They get attached to this world of Pandora, the fantasy world, and they can't deal with reality afterwards.
They see this movie, and especially if they see it in 3D, they're really feeling it, and then their world is not this, so that's what's leading to the depression.
More than 1,000 comments have been posted on a fan forum website thread titled, Ways to Cope with the Depression of the Dream of Pandora.
I think you might need some other things in your life if you're, no?
But I will say, when you're sitting there watching the movie, you want to go there, at least on vacation.
But let me be clear, I'm not saying Avatar is a bad movie. As a piece of pure technical craft, it's incredible. Cameron created what he himself called
the best possible cinema experience.
But here's the thing. The process Cameron used was one-of-a-kind, mad genius process. And no one in Hollywood saw the years of hard work behind it. All they saw was a new trend that said every problem can be solved in post-production. A director just has to tell the computer guys to press an effects button, and bang, the movie is done. But this new trend had consequences. First, a strange weightlessness. With no limits, the laws of physics became a suggestion. Action scenes felt hollow. Remember the final battle in Black Panther? Yeah. Or how Fast and Furious became a cartoon on coke? You couldn't care less about these scenes, but at least you've got family.
Family.
It infected even the camera. As the Dark Knight DP Wally Pfister said about the Avengers, the camera work was illogical, designed not to tell a story, but to show off a digital set. This revealed a shift in thinking. The old goal was to hide the effect, to blend it seamlessly into reality. The new goal was to brag about the render, to move the camera in impossible ways simply because you can. It's the difference between dressing with taste and wearing expensive clothes just to show you have them. Special effects used to be like finding an onion ring in your order of French fries. Now, Hollywood just serves you a whole soggy plate of onion rings for dinner. We now live in a world without limits, and without these limits, everything feels lifeless. Think about how that affected actors on those bare-bones sets.
Here we go.
At least Cameron took his whole cast on a trip to give them a feel for how it was supposed to look.
It was just the kind of kinesthetic sense memory that allowed them to create. What did it smell like? What did it feel like? What did the trail feel like under your feet?
on my tail.
While Hollywood raced to abandon the real world, Cameron did the opposite. For the sequel, his team tried to convince him to fake the underwater scenes, to hang the actors on wires. Cameron refused.
Just doesn't work. It looks phony. And it also is distracting from performance and so on, and you're not getting the real water physics.
So to capture the feeling of being underwater, he built a massive water tank inside a hangar. He built a real mini ocean to make his fake one look believable. His goal was never to escape reality. It was never about what he can bring to the filmmaking process. It was about what he could remove. For years, his true enemy was chaos. Chaos is the bad weather that ruins a shot, the light that takes 20 minutes to move, or the perfect sunset that's gone in 5. Which brings us back to the deck of the Titanic, back to that fleeting sunset. He had 2 takes to film that iconic kiss. One of them was out of focus, and that's the one in the movie.
Oh my God, who the hell cares?
The volume, the virtual camera, performance capture, it was all an elaborate multi-million-dollar engineering project to ensure he would never again be at the mercy of a single imperfect moment.
And action.
He built a factory designed to manufacture perfection.
Perfect experience. Perfect in the photography, perfect in the post-production, perfect in the CG. And we really jumped through a lot of hoops to deliver that experience to the audience.
So what did that factory actually produce? Can you quote a single line from Avatar?
I see you.
Yeah, I see you too, Natiri. And I see the Colonel's arsenal of stereotypical tough guy lines too.
Shut your pie hole.
But it isn't about the lines. I never expected the Na'vi to be delivering royal with cheese dialogue while flying through that gorgeous landscape.
What do they call a Big Mac?
Big Mac's a Big Mac, but they call it Le Big Mac.
Le Big Mac.
It's about the story. Think about it. A soldier sent to a hostile world joins a native tribe, falls for the chief's daughter, and ends up fighting his own people. It's a story you know because you saw it in Dances with Wolves. You saw it in Pocahontas. You saw it in Last Samurai. Hell, even The Witness.
Enough! Enough!
The critics called it out. Cameron didn't even deny it. He admitted it was a classic story, just seen through a sci-fi lens.
Dances with Wolves wasn't a science fiction movie. It didn't take place on another planet. The specifics of the storytelling are very different.
After all, you could say there's only a handful of basic plots in the world. But if that's true, why Avatar got so much hate for it when so many others don't? Why could you see every trope coming from a mile away? How can you write a script that doesn't even try to dodge a single cliche? The answer, of course, was Titanic.
Oh no, not again.
The film became a phenomenon because the spectacle of the sinking was just a stage for a simple love story between Jack and Rose. No twists, no puzzles to solve. You know the hero and the villain the second they appear on screen. The movie never asks you to think. Big ship, cute couple, iceberg, ship sinks, love doesn't, credits roll.
It's an oversimplification of events, but yes.
Emotion is a universal currency, and Avatar's story was engineered to trade in it. Even the central theme, technology versus nature, was the safest choice possible.
Oh, I love this one.
If it got out that there was an environmental message to this film, it would cost us 50% of our box office.
In interviews, Cameron constantly calls it a bold risk. A risk? What risk? Who is offended by the idea of preserving nature?
As you can see around me, nature is bullshit.
It's like Tolkien bragging about the boldness of making trees fight Saruman. Come on! You don't pick a theme like that because it's daring. You pick it because it's safe. You pick it because it offends no one.
So it was touching people everywhere, the same way, regardless of language or religion or any of those things.
And the proof that his plan worked is in the numbers. 3/4 of the film's revenue came from outside the U.S.
The simplicity of the story seems to transcend cultures very, very easily.
It worked everywhere on everyone.
So you can understand why they let him break the bank on giant 3D Smurfs in space.
The formula was proven, but could it be repeated? Almost every major studio has tried to copy it since, but the real answer came 13 years later. Yes, it could.
The most dangerous thing about Pandora is that you may grow to love her too much.
The Way of Water isn't a sequel, it's a copy. Jake Sully once again learns the ways of a new tribe to fight the same old villain. He just has a family now.
Family.
The whole family theme feels like a note from the marketing team. Hey James, our numbers with families and teenagers could be higher. Say no more, bro.
I got this, bro. Bro. Come on, bro.
The sacred tree is now a sacred reef. The dragon-like banshee is now a Tolkien whale. Cameron made the same movie twice. And for the second time, the world made it one of the highest-grossing films in history.
Amazing, isn't it?
The factory worked. Cameron is finally in total control. His old collaborators say he's a different person now, and it makes sense. When your system has defeated the chaos you fought your whole career, you're probably going to be happier. And I want to be clear, I don't see James Cameron as the villain of this story. I believe he's sincere. He loves theme park rides. He loves spectacle. And he loves to win. But a roller coaster is a thrill on your birthday. Ride it every Friday, and you just feel sick. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like, share, follow, ring the bell, all of those good things, and we appreciate you very much.